As always, the Pittsburgh Steelers have very fun ways to make a game that you think should be comfortable, uncomfortable. That's what happened Sunday night. Now, we talked about the win in our Monday show on the Locked On Steelers podcast, but we got to talk about the things that scared you a little bit more because the tackling became a major issue. We're going to talk about the tackling from the plays that happened to the players that needed to improve. And the question, should the Steelers go get some help? And I say we because I'm joined by Tony Serino for a Tony Tuesday right here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things in the Pittsburgh Steelers. And y'all know that we got to bring in Tony Serino. But before we do that, I got to remind you guys, this show today is brought to you by McDonald's. This episode of the Locked On Steelers is brought to you by McDonald's, proudly serving community since 1965. McDonald's has always been more than just a place to get tasty, affordable food. It's an unofficial community center. A big thank you to our friends at McDonald's for always being there. I'm loving it. And we also thank you for making Locked On Steelers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including Apple, Spotify, Odyssey, Google Podcasts, and of course, YouTube. If you're watching this on YouTube, please like the video, subscribe to our channel. It's a wonderful show. Now, bring it in. Y'all know what time it is. It's not just any Tuesday. It's time for a Tony Tuesday. What's up, Tony? How you doing?
Happy to be here. Happy that we no longer are doing Tony Blues Days. They're done. They're done for the year. We're
For the
out.
year.
It's over. It's over. We're it's Tony Wednesdays every. Maybe we should have me on Wednesdays for a Tony. Anyway, we're going. Okay, got it. Anyway,
we lose the alliteration, man.
We do. We absolutely do.
Listen. We'll work on the W thing. First of all, Tony, how you doing, my man? I know that you were probably stressing like the rest of Steeler Nation on Sunday night. Did it keep you up like as longer than you needed to be?
Oh yeah, no, the adrenaline of the end. That's the problem with a Sunday night game like that is that yes, absolutely, especially the TJ Watt strip sack, and then you're just like the adrenaline is pumping. Okay, I can't believe they won, and now I got to pace around my house at 1 a.m.
and work it off.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm trying to but it was an exciting game, and of course it was going to be an exciting game. The Steelers going up against a team with a bad defense and a backup quarterback and a backup running back. That is a recipe. Yeah, I mean, as Steeler fans, we all know. Tomlin told us what was his second year in the league. He said Steeler football is 60 minutes. It's never going to be pretty. And I'll tell you what, that was the most accurate thing Mike Tomlin ever said because we're bred as Steeler fans to know that this is our lot in life. There are no easy wins, but a win is a win. And in week 6 of the National Football League, I think you certainly have to take them.
Now, one thing, Tony, that I think rang the loudest in the problems of this game was the tackling, and especially the inability to stop the run. And I talked about that in the openings, in the post game show. Also, we apologize here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. There was a problem with Megaphone that didn't allow the podcast to go on Apple, Spotify, and Google Podcasts and Odyssey until midday Monday. It was up on YouTube, but there was a problem because I was using hotel internet, and there were some issues that I didn't see until someone tweeted at me and told me there was an issue. So very sorry to those who didn't get to listen to that in their mornings on Monday. But if you want to go back and listen to it, it is a fun show. I was able to do it while I was in New York City post-wedding, doing some celebrations there for some good friends of mine. Shout out to Naomi and Akshay, two good friends of mine that got married, had a wonderful wedding. We thank them and the Shaw family and the Burma family for hosting us. It was a wonderful time, and all my Steelers friends who hung out with me afterwards because they wanted to see what it was like watching with Chris Carter, who just sits there with a laptop and tweets throughout the entire game. But back to the Steelers at hand. Tackling was an issue in this game. In this game, they missed 14 tackles, according to Pro Football Focus. Minkah Fitzpatrick missed 3, Terrell Evans missed 2, Devin Bush missed 2, Cam Sutton missed 2, Joe Hayden missed 2. And then Buggs, Highsmith, and Schobert each missed 1, but those weren't the big problems for me. I talked a lot about the good side of this. Alex Highsmith was phenomenal. He had 4 run stuffs. He got 1.5 sacks. He was on fire. This was one of his better games that we've seen him play more consistent. The scary part for me, if I'm the Steelers right now, Tony, is that you just put up against a team that really doesn't run the ball that well. You just they were able to show that outside of TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, and Cam Hayward, if you run at that other side of the interior, teams are going to bully you. And you're about to face the Browns in 2 weeks, all they do is run the ball well.
Yeah, they absolutely have to shore this up, Chris. And it was weird watching the other night because while we've seen this defense give up big runs in spurts, the Packers had some success running the football, but even Tomlin had said after that game, like, look, that was a little bit part of the game plan. We just didn't want them to get big plays.
You didn't want Aaron Rodgers to kill you.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, Javonte Williams had some big plays in that Broncos game we talked about last week. So this had happened in spurts, but nothing like what we had seen, especially out of this iteration of the defense, right? And this defense, since Minkah Fitzpatrick gotten here, all this talent has gone in. I mean, this was 2 straight drives of the Seahawks just running the ball straight at the Pittsburgh Steelers. And it was I don't know, Chris. It was a little soft, wasn't it? I mean, there were times on that defense where it looked a little soft, and it's something we're not used to as Steeler fans watching. So I think they have to clean this up for sure. I wonder though, in a game where the Steelers just played a weird game against the Seahawks on Sunday Night Football, how much of this do you really say, okay, alarm bells need to go off, and this is something in the bye week that absolutely has to be fixed, or do you say 1 game sample size? This has not been a major issue all year. How much do we really need to course correct at this point, or how much do we just chalk up to, hey, 1 weird game? In fact, not even just 1 weird game, because really it was only a couple of series there. It wasn't like there was sustained success once this game got to the fourth quarter, or even overtime, when it came to running the football, right?
I do agree that there was a sense of like, this is kind of weird. And they talked about it during the game. Chris Collinsworth was like, the Steelers aren't trying to come out of their too high safety looks. They're trying to keep it. And a lot of people, I saw a lot of Steelers fans like, Keith Butler, why are you being so dumb? You're so scared of Geno Smith. He wasn't scared of Geno Smith. He was okay. He was trying to say, hey, Geno Smith, try to run the ball and try to dink and dunk us to death, because we'll take you having to be consistent for an entire game and not make a mistake over the chance that you just throw up a prayer like a Joe Flacco pass and DK Metcalf comes down with it and scores a big touchdown, because that's burned the Steelers at least 3 times now. So that's where I saw the name. But eventually they were like, you know what? They are hurting us with it. Let's pack the box. Let's get it done. And that's when you saw them take away the run, put pressure on Geno Smith, and they had a hard time. The real question, I think, right now becomes, Tony, like you said, how do they correct this? For me, I look at Isaiah Buggs. Isaiah Buggs cannot be a starter for much longer. I think he's getting whipped a lot. I think he's losing in the hole. If he is a starter, it's very much a rotation. Like, you're a starter for a series, and then in goes Mondo, or in goes Loudermilk, or in goes this veteran that we just signed. That's what the Steelers need to be thinking about right now. They need to be looking at this as like, hey, there has to be an answer. There has to be another option there, because putting him there, I mean, and we talked about this before we went on the air. It seemed like the entire time that the Seahawks ran the ball well, they didn't run outside by TJ Watt. They didn't run outside by Alex Highsmith. They didn't run inside to Cam Hayward. They ran right where that other defensive tackle is, whether it was Chris Wormley, whether it was Isaiah Buggs, whether it was Henry Mondo. That was the gap they were running. I will say Loudermilk had a little bit better of a game than I thought he did. He got in there.
He only had 8 snaps though. Loudermilk may end up being a kind of a saving grace here for the Steelers. A big body guy who the Steelers can maybe start to play a little more down the stretch. Although I think the issue here, Chris, if we're talking about Buggs going out of the lineup, Buggs was the replacement for Alualu at nose tackle when the Steelers are in base. Who is that going to be?
Who's it going to be
Buggs?
If it's not Buggs, it's got to be somebody. And the real question is, do they need to go get some other people? We're going to explore some options that the Steelers can use to fix this. They do have a bye week. That's one of the big things. They have a bye week to address things, whether it's personnel or it's practice, or it's just like you said, a fluke situation. But before we do that, this episode of Locked On Steelers is brought to you by McDonald's, proudly serving your community since 1965. McDonald's has always been more than just a place to get tasty and affordable food. It's a place where friends and family can come to reconnect and refuel. It's a place where classmates can meet up for a study group, knowing they'll have dependable Wi-Fi and endless supplies of French fries and McFlurries. Win or lose, it's a place where teammates, competitors, and the home team or the away team can go home to recharge. It's the place you always look forward to stopping at on a long road trip to rest your legs and refuel. I can tell you, Tony, as a guy who just drove to New York and back over the last week, but on both trips, I stopped at McDonald's for breakfast on the way out and on the way back. It was clutch. I got me my bacon cheddar or my bacon cheese and egg biscuit. It was wonderful. I get my orange juice, and I'm a happy camper. You want to go to McDonald's and make your memories. I did that with my loved one, my girlfriend. We had a great trip on our way back on that wedding that I was talking about in the first segment there. So why don't you go to McDonald's, listeners, and refuel and reconnect? Because at McDonald's, I'm loving it, because when I go there, I eat good, I make good memories, and we thank them for being a sponsor to our show. Remember to go to McDonald's. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. I'm loving it. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, I'm your host, Chris Carter, here with my friend here, Tony Serino, for a Tony Tuesday. Remember, you can listen to this show on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Odyssey, and watch us on YouTube. That being said, we got to get back to this tackling topic. Now, Tony, it's rough.
It's not great. It's not great. I mean, look, this is certainly a defense that we came into the year with. Steelers fans came into the year with expectations of being still. Look, this lost talent, but this was going to be a team that was going to fall off a little bit. But I don't know, Chris, that mid-season I expected to be sitting here with you today and talking about needing to add personnel to fix this thing. But I guess that's where the Steelers are right now, aren't they?
That's the situation right now. Like, and part of this is injuries. I mean, let's be clear. Now, yes, I do. When I look back at this game, I know Devin Bush, a lot of people were getting on him, but I saw a lot of situations where he's getting swallowed up a lot faster than he should be. The whole point of getting a Devin Bush, who's small and fast and moves sideline to sideline and get hold of hole, is that you got to keep him clean. But if you're not keeping him clean like the Steelers weren't, it's going to neutralize the whole impact of what he can bring to the game. Now, he's helping in a lot of ways that people don't notice when you see him take away the middle of the field in the passing game, when he makes it harder to target that part of the field. He's done that. Like, there's no question about that. But when you see him get swallowed, people are like, "Oh, why isn't he doing?" Like, that's not his role. The whole point of the Steelers' defense is to have those big guys up front that swallow. That's why they brought back Tyson Alualu. That's why they paid Stephon Tuitt a lot of money. That's why they paid Cam Hayward to stay in. They know that a big part of their defense needs to be keeping their linebackers clean with big, strong up front guys. Like we said before, Isaiah Buggs not doing that. No. Henry Mondu not doing that. Like, it's getting rougher and rougher and rougher. And
it doesn't look like Stephon Tuitt's any closer to coming back, right? I mean, he's practicing a little bit, but
we've only been shown, as a person who attends Steelers practices, I'm not allowed to say what I see there, but I am allowed to see what they report, and what's been reported, just via pictures, is that he has done some light things at practices. We have no idea when he's coming back. We've asked this. I know we've asked, Keith Butler.
No, Tomlin's and Tomlin and Butler are basically a broken record. It's not happening anytime soon. Doesn't sound like.
Yeah, they're kind of just saying maybe, I don't know, and then when you hear that, like, because they gave us a heads up when Zach Banner might be coming back. They gave us those heads up. So, like, the fact that it hasn't happened, Stephon Tuitt is not coming back to save you. So maybe it happens later in the season, but later in the season isn't right now. And this team is about to go up against a Cleveland Browns team that, yes, they're hurting right now. They're dealing a lot of issues. They're really, and we'll talk about the AFC North in the third segment. But to me, this is a game that's a must-win for the Steelers. They got to be able to put the pressure on the rest of the division. They got to show kind of the whole NFL is like, listen, that game was an ugly win against Seattle, but there's going to be plenty of chances for them to have good wins, and this needs to be a good win. But if you can't stuff the run against the Browns, you're going to make that game a lot easier for them, as they found out in that playoff game last year.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this team has to clean it up. I guess one thing we should talk about, before we start talking about going outside the organization to fix this, I guess Carlos Davis, if he were to get healthy, is an option on the interior as someone who, just a new body, someone they really haven't seen all year because Davis has been hurt. Davis is a young guy who there's some upside there for sure. He was in a competition with Buggs. So I guess Carlos Davis coming in could potentially make somewhat of an impact there. Chris, what do you think?
He could be. I like his physicality. I like the flashes we've seen about him, but it seems a lot to put on a second-year, seventh-round draft pick, right?
No,
you're
right.
Like, that's a lot to hinge on the hopes of him. To me, there has to be look, maybe you trade for a guy that's a temper, and maybe because there's teams out there that are struggling right now. They're like, you know what, this isn't our year. like, the Jaguars, the Texans, who maybe if they have a defensive lineman who they're like, listen, we're not planning on holding on to this guy here, take him off our hands for a 6th round pick, even though that's kind of what they did for Ahkello Witherspoon, and that didn't work out for the Steelers. I know Steelers fans think like, oh, don't do that again. But this is the whole point of those trades, that look, they're not always going to work out, and you're not always going to get, Minkah Fitzpatrick when you trade for a guy mid-season. But you take these trades to give yourselves a shot at having depth. I still think Chris Wormley's a good rotational depth guy, but him having to come in there and fill it the way he has, it's a lot to ask of him to do that much. So, Tony, I mean, I'm not even a guy who thinks who's looking around and seeing like, oh, here's all the definite people they should get at that position. But to me, it's something that Kevin Colbert should be on the phone about, because they need to shore up the interior of their defense.
All right, here's one guy that Kevin Colbert should call, and this is going to sound silly.
Who's that?
No, maybe not that silly. It's not a defensive lineman, but we talked about kind of that second level.
Oh, no.
These guys got to get kept clean. What's Vince Williams up to? Does Vince Williams? Come on, Vince, come on back. Come on back, Vince.
Come on, Vince. Remember, he was Vince for a while because he wanted to be a killer bee.
That's right. Yeah. He was certainly a quality run defender who you did not have to keep clean. He relished contact, especially in the hole. So I think Vince Williams, I don't know what shape he's in right now.
Yeah, that's the problem. I mean, because also the problem was that he went. I mean, because he said he was coming. First he was let go, and then he said I'm coming back. Then he retired. I really think Vince. I think Vince is trying to just like live his life now. Yeah. I mean, if he says, "Yeah, I've been training this whole time," great, that's awesome. Come back into the fold. But I mean, because also I'm not sure if because all Vince would be in that situation is the cannon fodder for Joe Schobert or Devin Bush.
Well, yeah, keep one of them free, right? He's the one that kind of takes on the guard coming through the hole or whatever to keep Bush clean. Yeah, that's where I think he's got to be the asset, because boy, they outside of Cam Hayward, Chris, they just do not have that guy right now.
They don't. They really don't, and that's the problem here. And this is what we talk about role players, why they're so important with teams. Brett Kiesel wasn't a phenomenal superstar player, but he was a great role player because he took on double teams, he kept guys free, and then when it was time to make a sack, he could make those plays on occasion. So like, there are a lot of those situations where you've seen that over the years where I think people have underappreciated. That's when Aaron Smith was so great at. Like, he kept people clean for years. Casey Hampton, that's why he was such a beast for years. So those roles, I think, get underappreciated, but that's something that the Steelers need to be considering right now, because, we're talking about the tackling, and yeah, you know what? I agree with you that the tackling is something that needs to be addressed, but I also think that there's a good chance that it's the bye week. They're going to look at that. They're going to say, listen, guys, there was like the one play on a third down where Terrell Edmonds missed the tackle because he was going for the strip, which I didn't think he needed to go for the strip. They would have forced a punt after the play. And then Robert Spillane dove unnecessarily, and it cut off Minkah Fitzpatrick, and then the guy ran for a first down. Those are the type of things that, just, hey, work on these moments, work on these matchups that you anticipate and how you're going to break down those tackles and make sure that you don't have those misses. Keep the play in front of you. Play fundamental football. I think they got a little too let's force the turnover happy in that game, and that's what allowed that to happen. Because when I look at the missed tackles numbers in this game, Minkah Fitzpatrick had 3 leading the way for the Steelers. But right now, before that game, when I looked on PFF, the Steelers they were ranked 7th in the NFL in their missed tackle percentages, means 7th best, not 7th worst. That they dropped to 13th after this game. So obviously, really bad game to fall 6 places down in the NFL with that one performance. But that's why I also think it could be an anomaly. It's something that was just bad for that game. Like you said, Steelers fans, you know how many times you've had those bad, really bad games that are so stupid. I mean, how many times with the Raiders over the years? I mean, it's just it's something that is like, hey, these guys don't typically have this kind of performance, but even you look at last year's 11-0 stretch. Like, did we forget that Garrett Gilbert and the Dallas Cowboys were throwing into the end zone to win that one at the end? The entire Ravens team is just ravaged by COVID, and that was a 16-14 game there at the end. So yeah, I mean, the Steelers do this all the time. You brought up Terrell Edmonds. I think it is worth mentioning with Edmonds. Like, he's been having a decent year in tackling wise. I think PFF had him marked for only 1 missed tackle coming into this game. And I do think you talked about like this team kind of feeling the pressure of turnovers and wanting to get turnovers and feeling like this was an opportunity for them to get those turnovers again. Certainly could have. I have been, one thing about Edmonds is, the Steelers declined his 5th-year option. You and I were both surprised by that. This is now basically a contract year for him.
I'm kind of surprised. It does feel like, Chris, a little bit that he's taken a small step backwards this year from where I thought he would be. They looked like a player last year that was ascending, maybe not to be a star, but certainly to be more than just a cog in the wheel, which is what he had been his last 2 years. I've been kind of disappointed with that. We haven't seen like a real growth once again, like we saw from him last year. I thought last year he was kind of a average to above average player. This year, back down to he's just another guy, right?
I mean, I wouldn't say another guy because he has what's funny is like you said, he had one missed tackle going into this game. He had 2 in this game. Now he has 3 on the season. I mean, 3 on the season actually isn't that bad. The same thing with Devin Bush. He has 3 now because he had 2 in this last game. So like missed tackles, not as much of a problem. I think the biggest thing with Terrell Edmunds is that he does take away a lot on the field. Like when you go back and you watch, like, man, this was really good coverage, and the quarterback didn't want to go here, so he went somewhere else. I think part of that is the Steelers have given up at least 3 of those big shot plays. In situations. If they haven't given up those plays, how much more would we be looking at the rest of the defense doing their jobs because they were providing good coverage and forcing those deep balls. If those deep balls are defended, maybe they're 4-2 instead of 3-3 right now, or even 5-1, because those were situations that broke open games for opponents that they were banging with. So I look at that situation and I say, Terrell Edmunds definitely hasn't taken the step forward this year. I will agree with you on that.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit. I'm not so sure about taking the step backwards. I'm not sure if he's regressed as much because I've seen good moments where he's been like, hey, that was the coverage that you needed there. That took away this, and he's been in the right spot here and there. But again, to your point, if you're going to get paid in this defense, if that just paid TJ Watt big money, that's probably going to pay Minkah Fitzpatrick big money. You need to show that you're as important as those guys. And right now, Terrell Edmunds, if they can find another guy that's like 6'2" and can move the way that he does, they'll go get that guy in the draft and they'll say, like, you know what, buddy, just play this role. I'll tell you what, Trey Norwood, he's putting himself in I mean, the way that he's playing in the slot and helping at safety, it's not phenomenal play, but it's solid play. And if that's all you need from your strong safety, it might be like, look, Trey, that's your role now. Take that on.
You think you'll put him at full-time strong next year?
I'm not. That's the thing. I'm not saying that's definitely
small,
the move.
I think.
Yeah, too small. But as a rotational guy, like how they're using Cam Sutton, I mean, not that he would line up outside, but Norwood at free safety, Norwood occasionally a strong safety, and then in the slot, I mean, Mike Tomlin loves those kind of guys. So
I think Trey Norwood's like another Cam Sutton-ish guy where you can kind of put him where you need him.
5 different places.
Do everything. Never going to be like a outstanding, oh my goodness, can you he's never going to be James Pierre, let's say. But he'll always be kind of that reliable guy at whatever position you need him to be.
Absolutely. So with that being said, they do have a lot to fix on defense when it comes to the tackling. We'll see if this is an anomaly. I'm sure the Steelers will talk about this before their next game against the Cleveland Browns in 2 weeks, but they got to fix it before then. And again, it wasn't that big of a problem because they were one of the best tackling teams in the NFL before that Seahawks game. So we'll see if that was just they're trying to force the issue with the turnovers instead of a serious problem that will be systemic for the rest of the season. But we got some AFC North talk for you guys. Before we do that, we got to talk to you about some of our sponsors here, and we got to talk to you guys about the Beach Bound. In life, we're all bound for different things. With beachbound.com vacations, you could be bound for adventure, bound for passion, bound for discovery, or bound for togetherness, bound for immersion, bound for rejuvenation, or maybe you're bound for just encountering the unexpected. Personally, when I'm at a beach resort, I'm bound to end up at the poolside bar or creating my own taco flight. Listen, I love me some poolside bars. Anytime I'm at a beach, Tony, I'm drinking Coronas. Like that's just, it's the law. Like you see it in the commercials, they got me. So that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing on beaches. As long as I've got a good view and a good drink in my hand, I'm as happy as I can be. With beachbound.com, you can find the perfect beach vacation for you, no matter what you're looking for. But what are you looking for? Visit beachbound.com today to find that. We're also brought to you by rockauto.com. Save time and money when using Rock Auto. Why choose to spend 30%, 50%, or even 100% more for the same parts from a chain store or car dealership? For example, a Honda Odyssey fuel pump is $353 from a chain store, but $216 from Rock Auto. Rock Auto is a family-owned business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. Rock Auto's prices are reliably low for every customer. They have everything you could need, from brake parts to tail lamps to motor oil and even new carpet. Go explore their new, easy-to-use website and find all the parts or solutions you have to your auto part needs. Go to rockauto.com right now to see all the parts available for your car or truck. Right, be sure to write Locked On in there. How did you hear about us box so that they know that we sent you? Amazing selection, reliable low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. Visit rockauto.com today and tell them that Locked On sent you. When we read back-to-back live reads, Tony, we keep it rolling here on the Locked On Steelers podcast.
Do it.
Now, we're going to take a step back and stop talking about what we think the Steelers need to fix and do they have a tackling problem, but let's talk about other teams that have problems. Now, the AFC North is highly competitive. The Ravens, they're on fire right now. They're 5-1. They're doing what they're supposed to be doing. And congrats to them. They're playing great football despite the injuries that they've suffered. Lamar Jackson continues to be phenomenal. I keep telling people he's not a running back at quarterback. He's a quarterback at quarterback. And that can also kill you like a running back. That guy's playing very well.
He's a good quarterback who happens to be the best running back in the league as well.
There you go.
It's absurd. Yeah,
that's the crazy part about that game. But the Bengals at 4-2, I think, are a lot better on defense than people gave them credit for, including myself. They're outplaying their expectations. Great job by them so far. But the team that was supposed to run away with it, the team that I saw some people putting in the Super Bowl, that it was a greatness, Baker Mayfield, the Cleveland Browns. I mean, what is going on with the Browns? Tony, you're smiling. I know you do the AFC North talk show. You're so excited for this week because the Steelers are a 2-game win streak. The Browns are 3-3. They're struggling. Baker Mayfield, I know there's injuries that they're dealing with, but guess what? Everybody's got injuries. The Steelers got injuries. Everyone's dealing with that all the time. Nobody said anything when the Steelers were hurt up last year and they were missing half of their team. Their defense was gone. Parts of their offense was gone. And it was like, nope, we don't feel bad for the Steelers. So it's kind of like, okay, Browns, let's see what you do here. And they got smoked by the Arizona Cardinals. And I mean smoked. What is your assessment of what's going on with the Browns? Do you think that they're going to be a major threat the rest of the way?
At this point, no, I do not. I think this is going to be the wake-up call of all wake-up call for Browns fans, because Steelers fans who do not watch AFC North Talk or don't follow a lot of what's happening with the Browns right now, this is a team that, they were going into this week, they were 3-2, but they had lost very close games to both the Chiefs and Chargers on the road. And in both games, they felt like, boy, if we had just opened up the offense a little more, we got a little too conservative down the stretch. If we had just been a little more aggressive, we had let Baker do his thing, this offense could have really opened up and we could have scored even more points. I mean, and then defensively, they kind of felt like, yes, we played poorly against Kansas City, poorly against the Chargers, but when you look at what they did against the Bears, against the Vikings, there was a lot of optimism that defense was going to be a top unit in the league, especially with Clowney and Garrett rushing the passer on every play. And yeah, Chris, reality set in on Sunday against Arizona as the Browns tried to unleash Baker Mayfield, and he paid them back with not one, not two, but three horrible turnovers that made that game pretty much over in the first quarter. I mean, that was a game that was 20-0. If you didn't turn that one on early, you turned it on, and bam, it's already 20-0 to the Arizona Cardinals. And that defense, you and I used to argue all the time about Keith Butler and the miscommunications in the secondary. Well, let me tell you something. I was getting flashbacks of watching this Browns team because they're way worse than the Steelers used to be. There are guys just running free, and not just, it wouldn't just be like a Christian Kirk. No, this is DeAndre Hopkins running free for the Cardinals in the back of the end zone.
If Rondale Moore catches you with the Cardinals, okay, you let, but you cannot let DeAndre Hopkins slip past you like that. That's not a thing. That should never be a thing when you're playing anybody that has him on your team.
No, and remember, this is a Browns team this year that went all in this offseason. I mean, they loaded up on this defense, getting JOK in the second round of the draft, and then adding Anthony Walker from the Colts and John Johnson from the Rams.
John Johnson, that's where I was going.
Trey Hill at corner. They drafted Greg Newsome. And they already have my boy Greedy Williams, who I don't know if you saw, Chris, on Sunday, but Greedy Williams gave up a late touchdown in this one because remember we talked about.
I think I tweeted you about him.
Every week Chris does not let me. He will never let me forget. Although I will say, Chris, to point out about Byron Murphy. I don't know if you saw the Hail Mary at the end of the first quarter, which is a miracle.
Okay, that was bad. Yeah,
Byron Murphy, maybe not the best at covering Hail Marys, but you know what? That's the worst thing about Byron Murphy. I think Cardinals fans will live with that one. This is a team that invested heavily, and they're no better.
But that's the thing. Like when you say heavily invested, I mean, again, they spent a top 5 pick on Ward, and like even he's not helping them right now. It's such a
he can't stay healthy either. He just can't stay healthy.
And that's the other thing. He can't stay healthy, but like this is alarming if you're the Browns. This is supposed to be your year. This is supposed to be your time. This is you rising to the top. Like at least the Steelers, even in last year, they were 11-0. Like they went. You're 3-3 through 6 games, and this is supposed to be the time of the year. And the rest of their schedule does not favor them making a run right now, Tony. When you look at how the Browns line up here, I mean. And sure, you could say, well, the Chargers are a good team, though. They got absolutely smoked by the Ravens. I mean, if you want to talk about the Browns having one of the better defenses in the league, and you're saying, oh, well, they only gave up 47 points to the Chargers. Well, the Ravens gave up like what 6 points to the Chargers. I mean, like that should be alarming right there. But they get the Broncos this Thursday night football game. That's going to be interesting. They play the Steelers at home when the Steelers coming off a bye week. We'll see where the Steelers are at that point and where they are with their injuries. And kind of that's actually a favor because they do get kind of a bye because they'll have the Thursday night football week. The mini bye. So like that actually might be it will be an interesting matchup. But then they're on the road to the 4-2 Bengals, on the road to the Patriots, who are so weird. I can't figure them out. Some days they're good, some days they're bad. But the Patriots are a kind of team that if you're not on your game, they can catch you.
They're hard out this year. Yeah.
They're hard out this year. But then they get the Lions at home. They should win that. But then back-to-back games against the Ravens, with the bye week in between, that's a tough situation to face. And then you finish with your last 4 games. Home against the Raiders, on the road against the Packers, on the road against the Steelers, then you host the Bengals, who are again right now are playing good football. There's no everyone, and I said this before the season. I was not big about the Browns. I've said, I think they're still a decent team. They got a lot of talent, but I had them being 9-8 because I just think like that this organization has not figured things out yet. And I look at this situation and like, man, like with some of these games, if they don't right the ship and if they don't find a way to say Baker Mayfield just stop stinking, they could do worse than 9-8.
Very easily, because this is the worst time for them to have a Thursday game. They are just absolutely brutal.
They're decimated right now.
And no Kareem Hunt, maybe no Nick Chubb, maybe no Baker Mayfield this week, which maybe that's. Maybe
that's Baker. That's good for them. Yeah.
Odell is hurt. I don't know if you guys saw they drafted Anthony Schwartz in the 3rd round, the kid from Auburn, like the speedster, who just reminds me of Dre Archer. I mean, Steeler fans remember Dre Archer, like super fast. What else?
Great in Madden. Horrible in life.
He's super fast. He's super fast. That's what he does. Like what else? He's fast. He's fast. He's really fast. I don't know what like this team is. I think right now, I think you have to say they are a worse football team this year than they were last year because from an offensive line perspective, they're hurt and not playing as well as they were. From a running back perspective, they're hurt again. Although I do think they were playing really well at wide receiver. They definitely not upgraded, although Donovan Peoples-Jones is a nice player. Odell does not add anything to that room for them. He is just him and Baker are not on the same page.
Baker and him can't connect.
And then defensively, it's an outright disaster. I mean, guys are coming wide open. I understand they had problems last year defensively, but this year, everything is so easy for teams. Go look at that Cardinals game and how easy it was for Kyler Murray to score in the red zone on situations when they should have been kicking a field goal. I mean, there was 3rd and long a couple times in that game where they just easily scored a touchdown. So yeah, I think the Browns right now are very much looking at. I mean, they're staring down the barrel at a 500 year easily with the way that they're playing now. They have to improve, and the problem is, Chris, and you and I have talked about this. Like Baker Mayfield, when everything starts crumbling around him, and it's time for the real Baker Mayfield to show up, that's not a good situation for the Cleveland Browns to be in. I know Browns fans want to convince themselves like, no, Baker Mayfield's a top 10 guy. He'll end up being a great quarterback down the stretch. When the situation's not right for Baker. Baker Mayfield ends up being, another Jimmy Garoppolo or Jared Goff.
I believe the saying. I believe the saying goes, "A rising tide lifts all ships." What does a sinking tide do? Because that's kind of what you're looking at with Baker Mayfield.
Baker Mayfield.
A sinking tide exposes Baker Mayfield. But that's again what we said then. That's why I haven't been sold on them. And I'm not saying the Steelers are destined to finish ahead of them. I do think the Steelers will end up being a better football team this year. I said that before the season. I say that now. I think that with the way that they're growing and how they're running the football, I think they still have definitely a better defense. And that's even without one of their best players, Stephon Tuitt, ever even setting foot on the field this year. I really think this team can be better and can be a lot better than the Browns this year. And we'll see in 2 weeks. That's going to be a major matchup, a measuring stick game for both teams sitting at 3-3. The Steelers, I expected them to be 4-2 in this situation. I expected them to be 2-2 and maybe beat some of the teams that I expected them to beat the Bengals. That would have been the one, but I didn't expect them to beat the Bills. I didn't expect them to beat the Packers. But and honestly, if Russell Wilson was healthy, I wouldn't have expected them to. I would have given that a coin flip game. So 3-3, considering the start the Steelers have had with all the injuries, I think that's a blessing. The way they had to go into the bye week after a 1-3 start at that situation, you're trending upwards. If you're the Browns, like you're sitting there like, wait a minute, if this is supposed to be the year, this is not what that's supposed to look like. You've lost back-to-back games. Your defense has given up 37 and 47 points in back-to-back weeks. And again, like you said, the only times your defense have looked great when they were facing the Houston Texans after Tyrod Taylor, got hurt.
They didn't look that good in that game. They didn't look that good in that game either.
They were getting carved up. Justin Fields is one. Like, what was that? His first game ever.
His first game
ever. And then Kirk Cousins. I mean, if those are your best accomplishments, that's where I think the worry is there. But again, that's why I haven't been big on the Browns. Again, the Bengals playing very good football. I look at the way that they're putting things together. I think that they're doing fine. When it comes to the Ravens, again, Lamar Jackson,
their team of destiny.
And the way that like you said, the way that they're playing. I mean, they win with making the doink field goal over the crossbar. They win a close one against the Colts that the Colts just they had everything control and then they failed. And
the fumble against the Chiefs. I mean,
the fumble against the Chiefs. I mean, imagine if one thing goes their way against the Raiders, they're 6-0 right now. This is a team that continue to play well, and they're playing the Bengals this week. That'll be a huge game to watch for Steelers fans at 1:00. So this is going to be a big week to watch. But Tony, I know you'll be breaking things down on the AFC North Talk Show. Let people know they can find you, follow you, and watch more of you there.
One closing thought for Steelers fans this year, and I know it's going to hurt because of the way the Steelers season ended last year, but the Steelers had a weird 11-0 run, and then kind of things fell apart at the end. And a lot of teams around the NFL said, hey, the Steelers were getting lucky all the time. It's not a surprise that they fell apart at the end. Mm-hmm. Closing shot here. Are the Ravens the 2020 Steelers? Maybe.
Well, stop it.
Maybe.
If that's going to happen, let it happen. But don't you try to predict that it's going to happen, because that's
maybe. Put me down for a solid maybe on that one. Yeah, you can find me on AFC North Talk. Tonight's show is going to be a lot of fun as we celebrate the Steelers win and celebrate a big, bad Browns loss. Check that out. AFC North Talk on YouTube will be live 5:45 p.m. Eastern time on Tuesday. And make sure you check out Friday's show. Friday's show is going to be a lot of fun this week. It's going to be a live show. This is the first time all 4 hosts are going to be in the same place. So check that out. That'll be Friday's show. Preview show. All we're going to be talking about is Ravens Bengals. That's the only game this weekend, as the Browns have that Thursday game. So make sure you check that out. And of course, you can find me on my YouTube channel, Steeler Country with Tony Serino. And then, of course, every Tuesday here with my friend Chris Carter.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Tony, for always being there for us on Tony Tuesdays. I'm Chris Carter, host of the Locked On Steelers podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. Remember, you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Odyssey, all the places. Rate us 5 stars and with a positive comment on Apple Podcasts, and you get a special shout out at the end of the show. We'll be back in your ears tomorrow right here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. We'll see you then.